I wonder what happened. These numbers seem a little bit off. Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Corny Phil, back again in World of Warships, and as I'm circling right there, there's a shitload of battleships in this queue. And that's because, well, the new patch meant that we had new ships added. Most importantly, the American battleships and the Japanese carriers. So this video is going to be a first impressions kind of video, so this is very early opinions, and I trust these opinions will be refined over time. But this is literally a case of, this is my first game ever in the South Carolina. I didn't even read the patch notes. I just said, let's get in this ship and see what happens. So power up the engines, because we're going to need it. Immediately switch to AP rounds. And guys commenting, there's a lot of battleships. Well, yeah, because the Americans are here, and everyone wants to play the American battleships. So, first impressions of this thing, I mean, it looks nice. 4 turrets, 8 guns, the same 305mm, that's 12-inch for us, you other Yanks out there. Guns, the same as the Kawachi, which I'll be doing a lot of comparing to the Kawachi because it's the nearest thing we have to a comparison, being as it's the same tier, same class. But already, the most obvious impression you should have right now, if you haven't already noticed, is, dear God, this thing is slow. And it's been a while since I played the Kawachi, so perhaps I kind of forgot how slow it was. I primarily played cruisers, a little bit of destroyers and carriers, but, and here I am just kind of zooming in close to get a good look at the ship, but good lord, this thing is slow. It's actually slower than the Kawachi. Be ready for some facts and figures here. The max speed on the Kawachi is listed at 20 knots. This thing's listed at 18, and I don't think I ever actually got it up to 18. I think I capped out somewhere in the 17 and a half range. This thing's just painfully slow. And I think that's the first real key impression that I don't think is going to change is when you go somewhere in the USS South Carolina, you're gonna have to commit, because you're not going to be able to turn around. That being said, while we're doing a little bit of boring sailing here, let's throw some other facts and figures out there. So, comparing based on kind of the key characteristics, the Kawachi. Biggest problem with the Kawachi was its range at 9.8 kilometers. The South Carolina, actually much better. Still short, but 11.2 kilometers. That's much more reasonable. And, the guns have a fairly good spread, too, all things considered. I think, if I remember, it's about 170 meters, which is still a lot. But that's battleships for you. What are you going to do? And at least you've got a little bit more range. Anti-aircraft armament's minimal, though there are a number of secondary guns. Turret rotation, rather than the Kawachi's 6 turrets, the South Carolina has 4. And they rotate at 45 seconds to go 180 degrees. So about 5 seconds slower than the Kawachi. Though some of that I think you can beg off on the fact that at least one of the turrets on the Kawachi will never rotate 180 degrees. So the full shift time I feel like might be accounting for that. Both fire at about 2 rounds a minute. As we already said, max speed 20 knots for the Kawachi, 18 for the South Carolina. But the one thing I will say about the South Carolina is it is maneuverable for how underpowered it seems to be in terms of its raw engine power. With a rudder shift time of 13.9 seconds, it's a full 4 seconds faster than the Kawachi, and I do pull off a couple of, I don't really pull off any great maneuvers, but I did feel as I was playing this ship that you had decent control. The ship responded very well. Finally, HP, the all-important HP pool. The Kawachi clocked in at 38.7k at max upgrade, and my South Carolina here is only clocking in at 29k. That being said, I looked at the armor figures, and the South Carolina is slightly more armored. Not dramatically so, but a little bit at least. So perhaps there's some armor differential that might make up for some of that, but I will say it feels like my initial impression is the Kawachi. If the Kawachi had better range, the South Carolina would be the weaker ship. But I think the range, you know, coupled with everything else, means the South Carolina can probably hang and bang with the Kawachi pretty well. You know, it's a little bit concerning that the Kawachi has more HP and a faster turret rotate time and is just faster. But the South Carolina is, you know, at least fast enough to buy time. And with the longer range, the South Carolina should get at least one barrage off before the Kawachi does. So a couple of good hits can, you know, turn the fight around. Meanwhile, just quick directing to the game. Not much has happened. I'm sailing over to the right. Normally, I wouldn't go over here in a battleship because this is basically destroyer row, but as you saw at the beginning, there are so many battleships in this game. There are virtually no destroyers or cruisers, so I actually feel safe doing this. And I'm not the only one over here. We're having a bunch of some aerial duels going around, some planes coming in. When I was playing, I hadn't yet looked at the AA complement, but suffice to say, it's abysmal. This thing ain't shooting down planes. You're just going to have to hope and pray they're not coming for you. But we're going to come around the corner and lay into this, and I've actually forgotten. I think it's a Wyoming. Is it a Wyoming? We'll find out in a minute, but I'm pretty sure it's a Wyoming. That's one of the things I've gotten much more consistent about doing is holding Alt. If you haven't realized this yet, holding Alt not only gives you details on their ship if you can see them, including health bars, it also gives you range indicators and time shell distance travels. And, you know, initially I was like, oh, this seems kind of cheaty, but I realized that, like, this is all stuff that a ship captain would be able to calculate. I mean, all the factors are known to some extent. So we're just going to give this guy a helping of the good news. 5 hits there, not a lot of damage. I mean, these are 12-inch guns, so they're about as, you know, they're pretty much the smallest guns you'll see on a battleship. But they did, you know, they did decent damage, and that was my first barrage. And the gun sounds, by the way, just side note, that I feel like the patch changed a bunch of the gun sounds because they sound different, and I'm good with that because they feel a little bit better, a little bit more heavy gun. So we're getting our reload up here. We're going to give him an extra second to give us the broadside. Sling him in, and my first Citadel penetration for a nice, you know, rest of his HP bar there. Nice Citadel penetration, good kill. You know, did I maybe kill confirm that a little bit? Maybe, but I did some damage to him. I hit him, you know, a number of times, so I did what I could do. And then those torpedo planes are coming past, and this is actually really the point I realized how pathetic my AA complement, if I have any, is, in that I don't think I shot those planes at all. And at this moment, I wasn't actually paying attention. I didn't realize those planes had dropped. But here's where that rudder shift time comes in, because look at this. You know, he had the drop on me. You know, good spread. I don't think he manual fired it because it's a little bit more spread out. But we got, you know, we almost managed to avoid that, and took one amidships at an angle on what I assume was a torpedo belt, because it didn't cause a whole heck of a lot of damage, and more importantly, it didn't cause flooding. So that was nice, actually. So, you know, we've tested out the guns, decent. We've tested out the armor, decent. But of course, there's one just glaring thing about this ship. If you take nothing else away from this video, you have to understand how god-awful slow this thing is. You know, much like the Kawachi, once you commit to something, you just have to keep going, because you can't get to the other side of the map in anything resembling reasonable time. You know, 17 knots just isn't gonna cut it. So, on the map, I was trying to be kind of a self-aware player, because I was really playing to win here. Our team's up a kill, though I don't know for how long. And I realized that our left flank had basically collapsed. We basically didn't have ships over there, so somebody has to get over there. And I'm telling my team, you know, somebody's got to get over there, somebody's got to do something. Because we can't, you know, I don't want to lose this game because we just get capped from behind here. But I'm going to drift my way back over there. Really, you know, from my perspective in-game, I was really just hoping and praying I could get there in time. Because like I said, I mean, I'm still coming to grips with how slow this thing is. But that's okay. You know, like we said, we evaluated earlier with the numbers. There was plenty of reasons both ways. Now, right here, I don't know what happened. Like, I stopped paying attention for half a second, and my ship just kind of turned left. Like, you know, this was, you know, NASCAR or something. You know, they just turn left. And I was like, well, I don't know what's going on here. But, you know, we throw it into reverse, back it up. And, you know, the ship, you know, responds fairly well, like I said. Rudder, you know, a 13.9 second rudder shift time's pretty nice. The max speed is brutal, but I did notice that the ship seemed to respond very well to its throttle. Or to its, I guess it would be a throttle, right? If there's a more nautical term, comment section. Tell me what the correct terminology there would be. But it responds well, or the helm responds well, both in terms of turning and in terms of speed. Because you notice I get back up to speed pretty quick. Now granted, that ain't very fast, but at least we're moving. So the game itself is kind of hanging in the balance here. We're starting to take some casualties. But my team's pushing towards their cap, but we've got much bigger problems. We've got one battleship defending our cap and at least 2 enemy battleships, plus I believe there's a destroyer hanging out somewhere down there. So we've got to get back there. And I've kind of committed myself at this point. I'm going for the cap because I just know I can't get to their cap in time. You know, I'm just too slow for that. Maybe I can get to our cap in time to, you know, try to save the day, which, you know, we'll see how that goes. God, you know, I'll try, but I don't know how I'm going to get there in time. Right about now, somewhere right in here, I start rotating the guns because I kind of realize, okay, my choices here are a little bit sparse. I'm gonna have to turn a left at some point, so I need to start pre-rotating the guns because I knew the turrets were gonna turn slow. Like I said, I hadn't done the research yet. This was literally just a fresh game, just to get you kind of an unbiased opinion. Maybe I should have done a live comm of it, but live comms are tough to do and be kind of, you know, analytical in your approach. And I do want to do some amount of it, analytics, because I get the impression from you guys that that's something you really value, is a more analytical approach, which is something I know Swiss is very big on, is that, you know, analytical mindset. So we'll start rotating the guns. As you can see, they're 45-second rotation time. They're slow. Really slow. But thankfully I got plenty of time, so no big deal. And we're getting a better scope of what's going to go down in the cap, and it's bad. So there's our battleship fighting, and he's actually done what I think was probably the smart thing. He's went and engaged their destroyer first, because taking care of that destroyer is going to be critical, because the destroyer can just kind of smoke up, circle around, shoot torpedoes, and just be a general nuisance. And more importantly, he's going to be the one that I definitely can't catch. Now, I don't know if he was thinking about that, but I was grateful he did it over there in the Wyoming. Is that the Wyoming? Pretty sure it's a Wyoming. Yeah, it's a Wyoming. So we can, jeez, lost track. Oh, and actually, I missed something here, or I think I maybe noticed it right here. When you're holding Alt and your guns are rotating, it actually tells you. Okay, yeah, we missed it. It was a little bit early, but it's something very cool I just noticed. When your guns are rotating and you hold Alt, it actually tells you how many degrees off they are and gives you a countdown until they're swung into position, which is kind of awesome because it's super helpful to kind of look. And I got a pretty good feeling for how fast these guns were going. They were going, I mean, they were moving, but they weren't moving very quickly. And as we come around this headland here, we're going to realize exactly how much trouble we're in, because what I thought was 2 or 3 battleships in a destroyer is 5 battleships in a destroyer. So we're hopelessly outgunned. I know that my teammate isn't long for this world, but the good news is our team started capping too, so our team is at least giving us a chance. They're doing their part, so I have to do mine. And in this case, that means shouting 1,000 years for the Emperor, or, you know, whatever we would shout as Americans, and probably freedom, and fire my guns and basically just try to buy time. And that was a kind of a, meh hit, but what are you going to do? Battleship guns. That was a ranging shot, and I hit him, so that's a thing. Reload time is slow, but they're not looking at me yet. And really, my goal at this point is just to knock points off the cap, which means I probably shouldn't have kept shooting at this first guy, because I think I basically waste a round of I basically waste a round of shells here. But because I do knock points off because he's in the cap, but the other guys are holding more of the points, so it would have been a better use of my time. And right here, I actually realized that and be like, okay, whatever I need to do, I need to hit somebody who's holding more points, because my team doesn't need much. It just needs an advantage. And my teammate's dead, so at this point, I know there are 5 battleships training their guns on me. I'm dead. I just accept that. So I just plan to die with honor. Yep, and here comes the incoming fire. Fire my shells off. Come on, babies. Get good hits right here. They're dead on target, great hits. And more importantly, that double defend cap. If you can see, we're now ahead in the cap, and they don't have any ships over there to stop us. So just try to get one more shot off before I die a terrible, terrible death. Do get my barrage off, but it doesn't matter. I'm still going to sink. And like I said to them, I did everything I could. Can't do much more than that. But it turns out to be just enough. It was actually a very bad shot, but I did get one hit. And honestly, looking at the end score, that one final hit is going to be the difference. And there I go down. There's nothing I could have done about it. I was massively outgunned. But if you look at the capture scores, we're ever so slightly ahead. And in this game, ever so slightly ahead is more than enough. So now we just kind of play the waiting game as my badly wounded ship sinks to the bottom here. Rest in peace, noble warrior. Rest in peace. But looks like my last shot did just enough, because victory. So there you have it. That's my first game in the South Carolina and my impressions. Pretty good first game, especially with that Citadel hit. Here's, kind of end score stats here. I was basically middle of the pack, but I'd like to claim hero status. Anyway, thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Corny Phil. See ya.